Okay, this is part 2 of lesson 5 for hours 1 and 4 in my social studies class. What is the British Constitution? Unlike the US Constitution, the British Constitution did not exist before the creation of government. The Constitution of Great Britain is not a single written document. Instead, it is made up of the common law acts of Parliament and political customs and traditions. Three great historical documents are important in the development of the British Constitution and the rights of the British people. These are the Magna Carta, the Petition of Right, and the English Bill of Rights. Now, the Magna Carta was done in 1215, the Petition of Right was done in 1628, and the Bill of Rights, the English Bill of Rights, was done in 1689. These documents were written during the times of great conflict. Much of English history is the story of a bloody struggle for the power between the most important groups in society. These groups were the royalty, nobility, and the clergy. By the 13th century, the struggle was mainly between royalty and the Parliament. Parliament was originally a council of nobles created to advise the monarch. It soon became the branch of government that represented the most powerful groups in the kingdom. For hundreds of years, Parliament and the monarch struggled for power. During these conflicts, English subjects were jailed, tortured, and executed. Kings and queens defeated in battle were imprisoned and beheaded. Because of these conflicts, several important legal documents were written that limited the power of the monarch in order to protect the rights of other groups. These documents were important not only in English history, but also had a great influence on the founders. One of the most important of these documents is described below. Woo! Stop the train. What was the Magna Carta and why is it important to us? The first great landmark of British constitutionalism and one of the great charters of human liberty originated as a quarrel between a feudal lord and his vassals. One of the William Conqueror's successors, King John, tried to take back some rights and powers of his barons. This was the title of nobility given to principal vassals. The result was a war between the barons and their king, a war that was the barons won. With the support of the church and others, the barons in June of 1215 forced John to sign the Magna Carta, Great Charter, confirming certain traditional rights, by implication promising not to violate them again. Most of the rights in question were feudal privileges, enjoyed only by the feudal nobility. The tenets, principles, or doctrines of the Magna Carta were very important in the later development of the constitutional government. Government should not be based on the rule of law. The Magna Carta was perhaps the most important early example of a written statement of law limiting the power of a ruler. It expresses that the ideas of limited government by requiring the king or queen, the king to govern. Let's try that again. It expresses the idea of limited government by requiring the king to govern according to established rules of law. The Magna Carta, for example, states that no free man could be imprisoned or punished except by the lawful judgment of his peers and by the law of the land. Judgment of his peers did not originally mean trial by jury as we understand it. This statement, however, did explain the principle of due process of law, whereby no government could take action against those it governed except by settled and generally agreed on procedures and rules. Certain basic rights may not be denied by government. In limiting the power of the king, the Magna Carta also expressed the idea that established the rights of the government could not be violated. Most of the rights guaranteed in the Magna Carta belonged only to the feudal nobility. This Magna Carta did, however, secure some rights for others in English society. The king, for example, promised to respect the ancient liberties and free customs of London and no other towns. Government should be based on an agreement or contract between the ruler and the people to be ruled. The agreement in the Magna Carta was between the king and a very limited number of his subjects. It did not include the majority of the English people. It did, however, express the feudal principle of drawing upon an agreement between parties as a basis for legitimate government. Government by contract meant that if either side broke the agreement, that agreement would no longer be valid. Later generations also would discover in the Magna Carta the seeds of other important constitutional principles. For example, the American colonists found in King John's promise not to levy certain feudal taxes without the consent of our common council of the kingdom, and the principle of no taxation without representation and consent. Now, there is a critical thinking exercise. This is part of what I'm telling you that you guys need to be doing. Excuse me. So on the critical thinking, I want you to take those questions and being able to go ahead and apply them back into the chapter that I just read you. Under what do you think? That's just helping you. It's kind of like solidifying how much you're going to get out of this lesson. It's teaching you ways to go ahead and apply those. Some of this we've already covered in some of our different worksheets and how we touched on things, but I think this does a nice condensed version of touching on everything that and pulling it all together, what we've already covered. So go ahead and do that, and that'll be it for lesson 5, and you'll be done with that part. All right, thanks guys, take care and stay healthy.